Akutsu was a useless, half-witted demon who was sent to Earth as Hell's last hope to win the war against angels. Instead of carrying out his mission, he got distracted by 106 cm knockers and rizzed up a baddie who turned out to be an angel. When he was first introduced to his class by the homeroom teacher, everyone was stunned into silence because almost all of his front hair had fallen out, making him look like Smeagol's older brother. The teacher told the class he lost his hair as a child and begged them to make him feel welcome, saying he understood Akutsu's plight since he was a few years away from giving the Rock a run for his money with that receding hairline. Akutsu himself tried to gain their sympathy and pity by acting all miserable and while he secretly called them fools for falling for such a lie. However, his plans were ruined when the teacher noticed a thread on his head and pulled on it, revealing that he'd been wearing a prosthetic wig the whole time. So the man turned on him, thinking he'd been mocking him. Eventually, he told Akutsu where to sit, so he headed there but suddenly decided to bring out his inner contortionist ability when he set his eyes on the girl sitting beside him. Akutsu couldn't understand why his body was reacting that way, but he went ahead to imagine a life with said girl and decided to ask her to be the savior that Hell needed. Before he could open his mouth, a boy walked up to her and asked her out on a date in the most dramatic way possible, but she immediately turned him down, saying his breath smelled like Amy X's armpit. While he tried to convince her to date him, another boy walked up to Akutsu and apologized for his friend's lack of sense and RIZZ before introducing himself as Tanigawa. He then told Akutsu that the shameless fool begging for a date was Hirota, and explained that he had a habit of asking every cute girl out on a date even though he didn't have feelings for them. Just then, Hirota joined them and all three of them walked out of the class to the corridor where Akutsu asked them about the girl Hirota had just been speaking to. Hirota said her name was Lilia and added that even though she had just recently transferred to the school, everyone liked her because she was beautiful, smart, respectful, and hardworking. This was enough to make him decide that she was the right candidate for the job he had in mind. On his way home that evening, he accidentally bumped into Lilia, who was coming out of a dark alley. After they talked for a while and he tried to think of a way to ask her to join his cause, Lilia invited him for coffee. On their way to the cafe, Lilia didn't look properly before attempting to cross the road, so she found herself staring at the perfectly sculpted body of Truck-kun. As he was about to isekai her, Akutsu jumped in front of the truck and used his body to protect her from harm. The front of the truck was badly damaged and Akutsu, who was half transformed, tried to hide his face when he realized Lilia was looking at him, but she surprised him by holding his hand and running off. They went to an empty park where Lilia apologized for almost getting him sent to the afterlife, and then asked if he was a human, seeing as he was completely fine after getting hit by a truck. Akutsu was scared that his secret had been discovered, but when he noticed that she didn't look scared of him in any way, he grew a pair and revealed his demonic form to her. He then told her about the war between angels and demons and about how Hell was at risk of getting destroyed because the demons were not taking the situation as seriously as they ought to. He said his supervisor had sent him to Earth to find someone capable of motivating the demons to fight for their world, and he wanted that person to be her. He swore it was her decision that make and said she could take on the role temporarily until he found someone else. Lilia asked him if the demons would accept her, and just as he tried to assure her that they would, he was suddenly bound in chains. As he struggled to get free, Lilia laughed and said he was a rather dumb demon seeing as he'd invited her to lead Hell's army. Akutsu was still trying to make sense of her words when she unveiled her wings and revealed she was an angel. He was so shocked he couldn't conceal his reaction, which made her laugh. She then admitted that he was the second demon she'd encountered that day, as she'd exorcised one before running into him. Lilia told him she would do the same to him, but Akutsu got mad after hearing his comrade had fallen and broke the chains. He immediately attacked her, but he avoided getting clawed to death by flying away just in time and retaliated by kicking him. She then bound him in chains again and slammed him to the ground, after which she offered to spare his life if he told her Hell's plans. Akutsu refused, so she raised her scythe and was going to end his pathetic life with one slash, but changed her mind at the last minute. This surprised him, but not as much as her telling him that he'd worked for her. Akutsu pointed out that angels and demons couldn't work together, but after she threatened to post a picture of him tied up, he agreed to work with her. Instead of releasing him immediately, she forced a bright pink collar on him, which left him feeling like a dog. She then told him that his new job was to help her hunt demons, but Akutsu refused and then tried to take off the collar. He eventually stopped when she informed him that she was the only one who could take off the collar. She also told him that he could be forced to do her bidding if she wanted him to, and gave him a demonstration by forcing him to act like a well-mannered butler. Akutsu tried his best to get his body to resist her, but it was pointless, and he ended up going to fetch her some drinks. He had to transport them in his shirt, because he had no bag with him, and Lily found it disgusting, so she poured it on him. For some reason, and in very few minutes, he made a throne for her, and out of the generosity of her heart, she asked what he wanted her to do for him. Since he hadn't gained control of his mind and body back, he got on all fours and begged her to smack his butt.
Are you serious?
Lily found it amusing that he was a kinky freak and decided to grant his wish. However, she hesitated. When she eventually tried to make him call her daddy by hitting his behind with her foot, a security guard ran into the park. Immediately, Lily bolted out of the park like the Flash, with Akutsu hot on her heels as the man chased them. They ended up in an alley, panting like they had been doing an activity other than running. After catching her breath, Lily asked Akutsu if he would work with her as she wanted. He told her he'd rather be exorcised than betray his people, so she threatened to make him walk around butt naked and flash everyone his miniature light pole. To protect his dignity, he agreed to let her know if there were any demons around, and she promised to reshape him into a better person in return. Akutsu told her that her reward wasn't enough motivation for him to do her bidding, so she offered to hug him instead. Her sudden change caught him off guard, and as he scolded her, toying with his feelings, the security guard found them, so they ran away again. Later on, after Akutsu got home, he noticed that the collar was gone and began wondering if it had fallen off somewhere. However, Lily texted him at that moment, and she informed him that the collar had become part of his body. The only indicator that he still had it were the tattoos he now had on his neck, which made him angry that he couldn't go to the pool. Meanwhile, Lily reported to her supervisor and told them she'd exorcised a demon, refusing to mention Akutsu's existence. She planned to prove to her fellow angels that they had been wrong about her by manipulating Akutsu and making him fall for her. Unknown to her, Akutsu also planned to make her fall for him so he could be free once again. He also recalled how RIZZ, his supervisor, had briefed him about the mission and what was expected of him. During the briefing, she showed him pictures posted by angels of the demons they humiliated. She also warned him that the angels had sent representatives to Earth and asked him to be careful. RIZZ was the one who gave him the bald wig cap, claiming it would make the humans more sympathetic towards him, but that had been a bust. Back in the present, Akutsu got ready for bed and decided to watch a show, which gave him an idea of how to deal with Lily. The next day at school, Hirota and Tanigawa were just telling a smug-looking Akutsu that he looked different when Lily arrived. He was glad she had come and decided to put the plan he'd come up with after watching a show about married couples the previous night. The moment he turned around to greet her, he was stunned into silence by how cute she looked. It seemed Lily had also watched the show and had also concocted the same plan. Both of them soon realized they had the same plan, but none was willing to back down, and so began their seduction game. Every time Lily tried to draw Akutsu in by acting cute and oblivious, he retaliated by showing off his manly charms. One time after she solved a question on the board, she purposely tripped and fell on top of him. Akutsu was caught off guard, and Lily was sure she'd won that round until their teacher got between them. A few days later, while Lily waited for Akutsu close to the mall, she was approached by two weirdos. She tried to get them to leave by shyly saying she was waiting for someone, but that only seemed to encourage them, as they liked shy, plotless lolas. Fortunately, Akutsu arrived just then and asked the men to stop making her uncomfortable by acting like desperate old geezers. The men seemed a bit intimidated by his composure, but the moment Lily hit his head with a life-sized pig figurine, they ran off screaming in fear. As they made their way through town, she told him the demon she was hunting was a beast type, because there had been reports of a stray dog attacking women. She then asked how close a demon had to be for him to sense it, and he told her that he wouldn't have any trouble sensing a weak demon close by. However, if it were powerful and masking its powers, it would be hard for him to pinpoint its exact location. While he was speaking, he sensed something, but almost immediately, the presence vanished. So Lily suggested they keep checking around. They visited a bunch of places and still couldn't find the demon, so they ended up in a cafe where Akutsu stuffed her face with a burger. Akutsu told her that if she kept eating like that, she would soon be known as Fat Lily. Lily got mad and tried to strangle him, but stopped when they felt a sinister presence in the cafe. The next moment, they saw Hirota banging his head against the glass. They invited him in, and after Akutsu explained that Lily was giving him a tour of the town, Hirota apologized for misreading the situation and following them around like a creep after he saw them together. He admitted he'd been sending them jealous vibes because he thought they were on a date, making Akutsu wonder if the sinister feeling he'd sensed early was from Hirota's jealousy. Just as Hirota was about to excuse himself, a girl walked up to their table and told Hirota it was rude of him to wander off and leave her alone. So he apologized and introduced her to them, starting with Lily. For some reason, the girl acted like a rude bitch and called Lily an incomplete dwarf, which made her mad. But since she didn't want to lose face in front of so many people, she played it off. He then introduced Akutsu to her, but she acted indifferent towards him. So Lily asked Hirota who she was, and he told her she was Yuka, his childhood friend. However, Yuka cut him off and said she was his girlfriend, causing him to scream in surprise, but Lily decided to take revenge. She sweetly asked Hirota why he had asked her out 5 times, even though he already had a girlfriend, which caused Yuka to drag him out of the cafe with his ear. That night, Akutsu had a dream where he and Lily fought off a beast demon together, and he immediately woke up shaking as though it had been a nightmare. The next day at school, Yuka came to apologize to Lily for insulting her at the cafe, but she still subtly kept throwing insults at Lily, as she was literally down to earth. Later on, Akutsu was on the roof thinking about the dream, when Hirota and Tanigawa came to find him and asked what was bothering him. Akutsu didn't think it wise to let them know he dreamt of Lily, so he told them he was having trouble sleeping because an older woman kept appearing in his dreams. His friends burst into laughter and said if anyone was supposed to appear in his dreams, Lily was the right candidate. Hirota even said he hoped Akutsu would develop feelings for Lily so they could become crush buddies, and he would give him advice. Akutsu then asked about Yuka, and Hirota explained that they were just friends. She'd made it her duty to play cockblocker, so no girl wanted to date him. Just then, Lily texted Akutsu, asking him to meet her for their hunt, but he texted back saying he had a stomach ache. Lily decided to track down the demon herself but didn't find it, so she sat on a bench to take a break, and that was where Yuka found her. Seeing that she was alone, Yuka invited her to spend the rest of the day with her, and Lily agreed. They first went to a clothing store where Yuka made Lily try on an outfit that was too big for her. Next, they went to a bookstore and bought some books none of them needed, after which they went to take pictures in a photo booth. It was there Yuka realized she was just hating on Lily for no just cause and decided to stop. They ended their time together at a cafe, and Lily admitted to herself that Yuka wasn't a bad person. After Yuka left, Lily received a text from Akutsu telling her he was on his way, and when he arrived, she asked him to take her to the demon because she noticed he'd sensed it as soon as he arrived. The demon was under a bridge close to the river, and while Akutsu stayed out of sight, Lily fought it off, trying to exorcise it. After they fought for a while, the demon transformed into a werewolf form he claimed was his ultimate form. Lily couldn't look at him because he looked like sus gymnast, so she struck his family jewels. As he lay on the ground, Akutsu began to tap his waist, and when he realized he was working with Lily, he tried to attack him. Akutsu tried to reason with him, but the demon told him to prove his loyalty by attacking Lily. But Akutsu said he couldn't. Lily told him not to interfere, else she'd get rid of him as well. But he argued that the only way to settle the problem was through love. Both Lily and the demon thought he was dumb for making such a suggestion, and made sure to let him know by insulting him as they fought. He swore he could prove it to them, and suddenly switched his clothes to match that of the demon before he started rapping about love. Well, he attempted to and ended up sounding like he was doing his first open mic. When he was done, he threw the mic at Lily and asked her to let him know how she felt, and she did just that. They did this for a while, exchanging the mic back and fighting until the demon begged Akutsu to stop embarrassing himself. He even agreed to confess his sins to Lily so they would stop tormenting him with their low-budget rap battle. Lily agreed, so he told her about how he'd learned about spats from a billboard. He said he became so obsessed with them that he went after any woman he thought was wearing it. Lily felt disgusted by his perversion, so she wasted no time in exorcising him. However, Akutsu was surprised to find a cute puppy standing where the demon had just been, and even more stunned when someone arrived to take him away. Lily explained that she'd sealed away the demon's powers and wicked thoughts, which meant he became an innocent puppy. She said she did like the idea of taking demon lives, and had only been toying with him during their fight earlier. Akutsu was still confused and asked about the demon she fought the day they met, so she showed him a picture of herself with another puppy. This made him wonder if angels were always kind and forgiving, unlike what they were led to believe in hell. But he also wondered if Lily was the only one with such an attribute. The next day at school, Akutsu was woken by their teacher from a dream where he nearly kissed Lily, and for the rest of the class, he tried to make sense of why she was constantly in his dreams. Later that day, he received a surprise visit from Liz, who asked how the mission was progressing. He admitted he was having issues because he wasn't sure the person he had in mind was the right candidate, so she told him to try and speed things up. That night she slept at his house, and the next day she told him to get dressed as they were going to do some training. The training involved him trying to talk to different girls to build his confidence, but none of them wanted to talk to his ogre-looking face. After he managed to get a girl's number by pretending to be looking for his dog, Liz advised him to try approaching other girls with something they liked. His next target happened to be Yuka, and she was quick to realize he was going around trying to hit on girls. Akutsu immediately denied it, but she knew better and invited him for drinks so he wouldn't feel bad for having zero rizzing abilities. However, instead of going to a cafe, they went to a bar and ordered orange juice while he waited for Liz to instruct him on what to do next. Yuka then asked if he had a crush on Lily, causing the juice he drank to gush out of his ears for some reason. He tried to deny it, but she told him his behavior was very obvious and offered to help him if he decided to make a move. While they were talking, Liz instructed Akutsu to invite Yuka to the park, but he refused, saying it was already late. Liz then threatened to give him a bad score for his evaluation, so when Yuka got up to leave, he pulled her back. Before Yuka left him at the park, she promised not to tell anyone what happened at the bar. After she left, Liz congratulated him for a job well done and told him she was leaving. She also told him she wouldn't judge him for his preferences, causing him to remember how his tattoo had made him confess love to the bartender, because Lily had accidentally set it off. The next day, Lily decided to up her game to make Akutsu fall hopelessly in love with her by increasing her cuteness level. However, it seemed like no matter what she did he wasn't affected, that she began to question her ability. In a desperate attempt to reel him in once and for all, she made a drastic decision and tried to crash into him on the stairs. Akutsu already expected her to do something crazy, so he easily caught her before either of them could fall. Lily was so embarrassed and tried to leave, but he insisted on taking her to see the nurse to make sure she was fine. He waited until she was done, and when she joined him outside on the bench he was sitting on, he offered to buy her a bottle of water. Lily told him not to bother and picked up his already opened bottle so she could take a sip from it. Instead of doing that, she turned to him and shyly mentioned that drinking from his bottle was the same as kissing him indirectly. Akutsu looked away feeling a bit embarrassed, but Lily was pleased because she felt her charms were finally working. Unfortunately for her, Akutsu was a long-time Uno player, and he pulled the most unexpected Uno reverse move on her by timidly asking her not to say things that made his heart skip a beat. At that moment, Lily's heart was the one skipping a beat until she noticed Akutsu smiling and realized she'd been played. To even the playing field, she tossed the bottle in the air and cut it in half with her chains. The water poured all over her body and she struck a pose, hoping it would get a reaction from him. It did, but not the kind of reaction she was hoping for since he took off his jacket and covered her up with it. After school, Lily invited Akutsu to her house, saying she wanted to reward him for all his efforts. Akutsu didn't believe for one second that she was doing it out of the goodness of her heart, but agreed to go with her. When they arrived at her building, he was surprised to find that her place was much better than the hole-in-the-wall cardboard box he was living in. Inside, he nearly lost his shit when he thought she was only wearing an apron over her naked body. Lily told him to pick his messed-up mind out of whatever gutter it had fallen into, and showed him that she was putting on clothes. A little while later, she served him pasta and Akutsu was surprised that it didn't taste like hot garbage. Lily boasted that she'd taken lessons from Gordon Ramsay himself and brought out another pasta dish. After the meal, they decided to watch a movie and Lily refused to watch the one Akutsu picked out because it had bugs in it. In the end, they settled for a romance movie and Akutsu tried his best to look unaffected when a kissing scene came up. However, he found himself staring at Lily's lips, which led to an awkward silence for a few seconds until Lily decided to get more drinks. The moment she stood up, Akutsu attempted to pull her back down, causing both of them to fall on the floor. He quickly apologized, and when he noticed the position they were in, he couldn't help but feel drawn to her. At that moment, he let his intrusive thoughts win and leaned in for a kiss. But the spell was broken by the sound of Lily's alarm going off. They both jumped apart like they had been burned, and since they were both feeling embarrassed, Akutsu decided to leave. Shortly after he left, Lily gave her daily report to her supervisor, and when she was done she kept thinking about the almost kiss. Akutsu did the same thing as he walked home, and the both of them realized at the same time that they had fallen for the other. Because of this, Lily wasn't able to sleep that night, so she ended up falling asleep in class the next day and found herself dreaming of Akutsu. However, it wasn't a normal dream as she had to make decisions like she was in a dating simulation. She was a bit freaked out when his body disappeared, leaving only his head, but after a few trials and errors, she was able to get his body back. Lily sat with Akutsu on a bench, and he asked her to close her eyes, which she didn't want to do at first. But when she thought about it leading to the kiss she never got, she decided to pick the option to close her eyes. However, before she could do so, a man claiming to be the waist ninja cut Akutsu down. As he lay dying on the ground, he admitted he'd fallen in love with her the moment he laid eyes on her. He placed his hand on her cheek and pleaded with her to smile so he could see it one last time. So Lily granted his wish with tears streaming down her eyes. As she took his last breath, Lily screamed in pain, and the next thing she knew, she was awoken in the real world. She was surprised to see Akutsu and Yuka staring at her, and Akutsu explained that he woke her up because she looked like she was having a bad dream. A little while later, she woke up in the clinic, but quickly covered herself up when she heard Akutsu walk in and call her name. While he assumed she was still asleep, Lily was sure he'd come to take advantage of the situation. However, she sat up and found him standing with his tie and top buttons undone, so she went back under the blanket. As soon as Akutsu finished adjusting his clothes, she bound him in chains and accused him of trying to take advantage of her. He told her he had no such intentions and explained that he wanted to talk to her about his tattoos. When they got to class, he told her he wanted the tattoos gone because he was hoping to spend time at the Sendo baths and the pool. Lily asked why those places were more important than the mission he'd been sent to Earth to do, and he told her he wanted to enjoy his time on Earth. He said he was a worthless loser back in Hell and had never achieved anything in life. However, coming to Earth and meeting so many people had given him a sense of fulfillment, and he wanted to enjoy it. When he realized he was sounding a little bit depressed, he apologized, but Lily told him she understood his plight. She then asked him to take a seat so she could hide the tattoos, but as soon as she began to do so, a blonde girl materialized. Lily quickly moved out of the way and asked Akutsu to do the same, but he wasn't that lucky as the girl struck him, leading to his death. Which would have been the story of his death if his reflexes weren't good enough. He asked Lily who the girl was, and she admitted she was her avatar acting as an anti-demon weapon, which she put in his neck as a precaution to ensure he didn't betray her. The next moment, the avatar tried to slash Lily, so she quickly slid out of the way as she wondered why it was attacking her when she was its master. She assumed that spending time inside a demon had affected it and caused it to malfunction. Just then, their teacher opened the door and scolded them for causing a ruckus after school hours. This drew the avatar's attention to him, so Lily ordered Akutsu to protect him before the avatar could strike. Akutsu managed to tackle him to the ground, and Lily bound her weapon with her chains before she could turn the teacher into Sleepy Hollow's Headless Horseman. Lily then instructed him to take the man away before the avatar got loose, but he got distracted by the man, asking him to get the remaining students in the building to safety. Tired of waiting for him to react, Lily dragged the teacher away with her chains and then told Akutsu to jump into the courtyard with her. Once they were there, the avatar followed them, so Lily created a barrier to prevent anyone from interfering with the battle. It immediately targeted Akutsu, but Lily helped him by retraining it with her chains. However, the avatar broke free and went after her instead. Fortunately, she dodged its attack, and just as she began to wonder why it was so strong, she noticed a tattoo on its back. Akutsu tried to take its weapon, but got hit with a powerful kick that pushed him back. It then went after Lily, who didn't move a muscle until Akutsu got hurt trying to save her from the avatar. He scolded her for zoning out in the middle of a fight, and that was enough to give her back her mojo. She immediately came up with a plan, which Akutsu helped her execute by drawing the avatar's attention to himself until Lily got close enough to deactivate it. As soon as she touched the tattoo on its back, snakes came out of it, confirming her suspicions that someone else was controlling it. She was able to pull out the snakes, and as soon as she did, the avatar disappeared, after which Lily fainted. Elsewhere, a blonde-haired woman expressed her surprise at Lily being able to destroy the snakes. However, she was a bit suspicious about how she'd gotten stronger, so she ordered the blonde-haired man with her to find out why. Meanwhile, Akutsu took Lily back home, and just as he was about to leave, she held onto his trousers and asked him not to do so. At first, he panicked, but when he noticed her hands were shaking and remembered how affected she'd been, he decided to stay back. He took a seat in the corner of her bedroom and thought about what Lily said about the avatar being controlled by someone else. However, he decided it was none of his business and wished she would return the favor for helping her. That was when he realized that if he left her to deal with the avatar alone, she could have died and he'd be free. Akutsu tried to understand why he'd risk his life to save his enemy, and became worried he was becoming one of the good guys. The next moment, he heard a voice coming from the balcony, and when the person stepped into the light, he was surprised to see the person looked exactly like him. His doppelganger told him that the reason he'd saved Lily was because he was in love with her. Akutsu immediately denied it, but his doppelganger insisted that it was the truth and said he knew because they were the same. He even went as far as telling Akutsu that the reason Lily asked him to stay was because she felt the same way. Akutsu became very excited at the thought of Lily being in love with him. However, when her blanket moved, he was shocked to find their teacher was the one occupying the bed. If it wasn't already obvious before, seeing the man confirmed that Akutsu was dreaming and being delusional. In the real world, Lily woke up and went to take a shower when she noticed she was still wearing her school uniform. On her way out of the bathroom, she nearly had a heart attack when she finally noticed Akutsu sleeping in the corner of her room. It was also at that moment she remembered begging him to stay and felt embarrassed. She then tried to erase his memory by whacking him on the head, but when she saw his injured hand, she felt bad. After she dressed his wound, she thanked him for saving her life, even though she knew he couldn't hear a word of what she was saying. When she remembered she promised to reward him with a hug, she had a mini meltdown. As much as she tried to convince herself that he didn't deserve it, she also knew she couldn't go back on her words. She then made up her mind to hug him even though he was still fast asleep. Not wanting to behave like a creep, she sat between his legs for a while, but before she could stand up, Akutsu wrapped his arms around her, which surprised her. Eventually, she got out of his hold and made his tattoos invisible like she promised to do, before her avatar went all crazy on them. The following day, Akutsu woke up to find that Lily had wrapped him in a blanket and chained him up. After he freed himself, he got up and walked out of the room, but Lily slept a little bit more until she heard a beeping sound. When she went to investigate, she found Akutsu in her kitchen and saw that he already made breakfast. After breakfast, they left her apartment together, but instead of going in the direction of the school, Akutsu began walking home. Lily pointed it out, but he told her he would skip the first period as he wanted to take a shower. Before he left, she told him she'd fixed his tattoo problem, which made him happy. He grabbed her hands excitedly, just as an excited Yuka and a shy Rota walked by and saw them. Later on at school, Lily took Akutsu to the rooftop and told him that there was a rumor going around the school about them. She said that after their encounter with Yuka and Rota that morning, she'd gone after them so she could speak to them and explain the situation, but she couldn't find them anywhere. She then went to school hoping for the best, but the moment she opened the door, she knew all hell was about to break loose. As soon as she got to her seat, she was surrounded by their classmates, who wanted to know if she and Akutsu were dating. When Akutsu asked how everyone knew about them, she told him it was Rota. It turned out that the shock of seeing them together had fried his brain circuits, and he just kept mumbling about both of them doing some workout sessions alone. Lily insisted they rectify the situation immediately, but Akutsu didn't seem to mind until he realized it would affect his mission. A few minutes later, Lily was back in class, and just like before, her table was surrounded by nosy busybodies. However, the moment Lily heard her phone ping, she excused herself saying she had to go buy a drink, but Yuka thought she was doing a tactical retreat. When she opened the door, Akutsu was standing there, so the class began buzzing with excitement as everyone wanted to see how their interaction would go. Instead of being sweet like everyone hoped, Lily and Akutsu did their best to sound like they had simply run into each other that morning at her place. After their pitiful act, which both of them thought was Oscar-worthy by the way, Lily ran off and Akutsu walked into the class. The entire class immediately knew they were faking, but when a girl named Koyamatasu defended them, their opinions changed. She simply gave a thorough breakdown of how the distance between Lily and Akutsu proved nothing was going on between them. She also came up with a bizarre story about Akutsu getting lost in Lily's apartment building and then somehow getting encased in stone. Yuka pointed out that Lily told them the same story and said she wasn't buying it one bit. Immediately, Akutsu began shaking his jacket outside the window, and surprisingly, it had pieces of marble in it. Later during lunch, even though Yuka was smiling, Lily was a bit suspicious of her because of the way she asked her to eat lunch with her. Yuka then turned to her and apologized for not believing her sorry before. To make it up to her, she fed Lily a cherry tomato and surprised everyone by doing the same to Akutsu, which made Lily angry. She planned to make them jealous so they would admit they were in a relationship. However, Lily was the only one who looked like she wanted to murder Yuka. Still, that didn't deter Yuka, and she asked Akutsu to hang out with her during the weekend, and he agreed. When the weekend arrived, Yuka and Akutsu went to a store to buy a pair of glasses. Unknown to them, Lily, Tanigawa, and Arota were watching them, and Lily wasn't very happy that Yuka and Akutsu were being overly friendly with each other. For the rest of the day, they followed Yuka and Akutsu without them realizing it, and when they got to the park, Tanigawa advised Lily to be true to herself about her feelings. He then said he had somewhere to be and left her alone with Arota, who rushed to the bathroom soon after. Alone, Lily sat on a bench and tried to convince herself that Tanigawa had been wrong about her feelings for Akutsu. Suddenly, she heard Yuka and Akutsu approaching, so she quickly jumped over the bush and into the pond she had no idea was there. However, she couldn't do anything since Yuka and Akutsu had already occupied the bench and she didn't want them to see her. Yuka then asked Akutsu what he thought about Lily, and he admitted that she was cute along with a bunch of other things that Yuka teased him for noticing. Hearing his words caused Lily's brain to overload as she didn't know how to handle the compliments, so she put her head in the water to cool off. The next question Yuka asked Akutsu was if he wished to go out with Lily, and he admitted that he did, but said it was something that could never happen. His words affected Lily, so she found a way to leave without them, noticing even though they heard the sound of water. The next moment, Hirota showed up with 2 drinks, and when Yuka and Akutsu saw him, Yuka asked who the second one was for. Hirota told her it was for Lily, and insisted he'd been hanging out with Lily in Tanigawa when Yuka began beating him up. She then bid Akutsu farewell and dragged Hirota away with the leash that suddenly appeared around his neck. That night, Lily discovered she had a cold, so went to bed early, and while she slept, her avatar came out of her. The next day, Lily didn't come to school and everyone was informed that she was unwell. However, Akutsu nearly died from shock when her avatar suddenly showed up. His friends asked if he knew her, and before he could speak, she introduced herself as Lily's older sister Lilia. She said she had come to attend classes on Lily's behalf, but when the teacher arrived for his class, he refused to let her stay. Lilia kept insisting, and after he got a good look at her, he remembered how she nearly sent him to the afterlife and got scared. He allowed her to stay, but Akutsu didn't trust her, as he was sure she'd come to school to do him harm. He kept his eye on her during class, and when he saw her struggling with the mechanical pencil, he laughed. But that nearly got his eye taken out because Lilia suddenly threw the pencil lead at him like a dart. Later on, during gym class, she sent him flying across the court after she spiked the volleyball so hard and aimed it at him. Right before the close of school, Lilia met with Akutsu on the rooftop, and she apologized for attacking him and Lily while being controlled. After he forgave her, she told him she had come to school because she was curious about why Lily had changed so much since she started attending. Akutsu then asked why she had attacked him with the pencil lead in the volleyball, and she said it was because he was to blame for Lily's sickness. Akutsu was confused, so she explained that Lily had watched him get friendly with another girl, and she didn't like it. Just then, Yuka popped out of nowhere and asked if she could tag along with them so she could pay Lily a visit at home. When they got to the apartment, Lilia tried to sneak off because Lily had no idea she went to school, but Akutsu refused to let her. When Lily opened her door and saw Lilia, she was very shocked but had to play it cool because of Yuka. After Lily welcomed them into her house, Lilia served some tea and began telling them things about Lily. Lily felt embarrassed, so she asked Lilia to run to the store and get some bathtub cleaner. As soon as she left, Lily stepped out of the room to get more tea, and Yuka suggested to Akutsu that he check on her. Fortunately, he got there when Lily was about to pass out and caught her in his arms, but she moved away from him. Akutsu was confused by her behavior and asked if she was angry with him, but she didn't answer him. Instead, she asked how his hangout with Yuka had been, acting like she hadn't been there the entire time. Akutsu admitted that he had a good time, which made Lily even more jealous, so she began physically pushing him away. However, since she was still very sick, she fainted, and the next time she opened her eyes, Yuka was sitting beside her bed. Yuka then told Lily she had to go home, and said that Akutsu would stay with her until Lilia got back home before leaving. In the living room, Yuka warned Akutsu not to take advantage of Lily, and then took her leave. Akutsu remained in the living room and tried to figure out what he'd done to make Lily so angry with him that she didn't want to see him. For someone so dumb and dense, he managed to put 2 and 2 together and realized that Lily had overheard his conversation with Yuka at the park. He then walked into Lily's room to check up on her and discovered she was having a bad dream, but as he stood there contemplating if he should wake her up or not, she grabbed onto his jacket sleeve. The next moment, she opened her eyes and asked why he was in her room. He said he'd been worried about her and asked why she was holding on to him, which made her let go and start burning up from embarrassment. Akutsu noticed this and thought her fever had returned, but she screamed at him to get out, so he let her know he'd stay in the living room until Lilia returned. Instead of walking away, he told her that Lilia had come to school to apologize to him. When he added that Lilia acted like her, Lily began bragging about how it was as a result of her perfect genes. Akutsu laughed and told her that if all angels were like her, there wouldn't be a war between them and the demons. He then turned to leave, but she called out to him and asked if he could hold her hand until she fell asleep again. Akutsu was shocked at first, but he agreed in the moment their hands touched. Lilia walked in, causing them to let go immediately. She then asked Lily what they had been doing, because she had a warm and fuzzy feeling in her chest, which she knew was a result of how Lily was feeling. Lily was so embarrassed that she screamed instead of answering Lilia's question and admitting her feelings. A few days later, Lily was feeling better, and she resumed demon hunting with Akutsu, but on their way, they met the blonde-haired man. It so happened that he was Lily's older brother, and Akutsu was so scared he would discover he was a demon. Fortunately, Lily simply introduced him as her classmate, after which her brother introduced himself as Zwei. He then told Akutsu that he wished to catch up with Lily. So Lily bid Akutsu farewell and left with her brother. Akutsu went to the park and thanked his stars that Zwei didn't discover he was a demon, but he couldn't help but feel Lily was a bit uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Lily and Zwei are at a park, and she bows to him as he questions her about Akutsu, who she insists is just a friend. Lily raised her head and asked Zwei why he'd come, but to her surprise he almost stabbed her with his sword. He told her that she was lucky it didn't pierce her skull and said she wasn't supposed to raise her head until he ordered her to. He then told her that he'd come on behalf of their sister, who wanted to know how she defeated the avatar she had blessed. Lily told him she'd summoned the avatar out of curiosity, but it attacked her, so she fought it desperately until she managed to remove the blessing. As proof, she showed him the cut she had on her right arm, which seemed to remove any further suspicion he had. However, he asked why she'd only been exorcising beast-type demons instead of going after the humanoid ones. When she said nothing, he asked if it was because she was just being lazy, or because she was plotting something against them. Lily swore that she would never plot against her people, so Zwei got up to leave but stopped at the last second. He told Lily that the blessing their sister had placed on the avatar was also a trap that would only activate if a demon had been close by. Lily was shocked by this revelation, and before she knew it, Zwei had pinned her to the ground and demanded to know who the demon was. Lilia struggled to come out, but Lily bound her in chains that prevented her from leaving her body, so all she could do was watch. Meanwhile, Akutsu had been watching them from a nearby rooftop, and Zwei's behavior made him remember why angels and demons hated one another. However, he felt bad that Lily was going through such a rough patch at the hands of her brother. He convinced himself that it wasn't his responsibility to save her and turned around to leave, but decided to call Liz first. He informed her that he'd seen an angel, and Liz advised him to leave the area immediately, but he did the opposite of that and jumped between Zwei and Lily. As soon as Zwei confirmed he was a demon, he tried to attack Akutsu, but he managed to dodge. Zwei then told Lily she would be punished for her betrayal and turned to face Akutsu again. Just then, Lily bound Akutsu in chains and screamed at him for risking his life to save her even though she hadn't asked him to. Akutsu told her that it didn't matter because the thing he hated the most was seeing her cry. He then got up after the chains disappeared and faced Zwei, who told him that if he could land a hit on him, he would pretend he never met him. Zwei moved so fast that Akutsu barely dodged, getting his head chopped off. Akutsu tried to retaliate with a kick, but Zwei blocked it and pushed him back. But when Akutsu tried to attack again, he summoned his 4 avatars and had them hold him down. As Akutsu struggled against them, Zwei called Lily to his side and asked how she was able to get a demon to side with her. He said she couldn't have seduced him because her body was disgusting. So Akutsu asked what he was talking about. Zwei ordered Lily to show him, but she refused, so he cut her tights to expose her thighs. However, they looked completely normal, so he used his sword to cut off the false skin and reveal what was underneath it. Lily begged Akutsu not to look at her while Zwei mocked her, which angered Akutsu. Zwei asked Akutsu why he was upset over what happened to his enemy, and one that was wingless at that. Akutsu argued that Lily had wings, so Zwei ordered her to show her wings, which she did. Zwei laughed when he saw them and told Akutsu he'd been deceived, before he slashed her wings, which turned out to be her chains woven together to look like wings. He then showed Akutsu what an angel's wings looked like and said Lily was nothing but a fake. Akutsu was so angry that he became blinded by rage because of how badly Zwei treated Lily, who just sat crying helplessly. As soon as his second eye took on its demon form, Akutsu tossed one of Zwei's avatars at the wall with so much force that her arm broke off. When Zwei turned around, he witnessed the destruction of the other 3 avatars and tried to slash Akutsu with his sword. Akutsu caught the blade in a tight grip and punched Zwei into a wall after he sprouted some wings. Zwei and Lily were surprised to see he had wings, and even more surprised when Akutsu moved past Lily at lightning speed to get to Zwei. He beat him up so badly that he laughed out loud like the Joker each time he landed a punch. When he was about to deliver the final blow, Lily got in the way and begged him to stop, but he slapped her out of the way. He then tried to punch Zwei again, but Lily used her chains to hold his hand in place and tried to pull a talk no jutsu. However, he wasn't paying attention and freed himself before he attempted to stump her like a bug. Lily quickly jumped out of the way, and while she was in midair, she noticed that one of his wings had disappeared. Akutsu still attempted to hit her, but Sui saved her before that could happen. After he scolded her for losing focus, he told her that the only way to stop Akutsu was to get rid of his wings. He said his wings stored most of his energy, and he'd used up one when he zoomed past her earlier. Sui then told her that he'd get rid of 4 while she took care of the last one, and he also mentioned that something about Akutsu bothered him, but refused to elaborate. When Akutsu moved to attack them, the siblings separated and used their chains to hold each of his arms. Akutsu easily broke free and moved to attack Lily, but Sui pushed him to save her and draw his attention to him. But Akutsu retaliated by grabbing Sui's hair and slamming his head into the ground. It was in that position that Sui opened his wings and used them to pierce through Akutsu's own. With the 4 of them gone, Akutsu's left eye returned to normal, and Sui called out to Lily to take care of the last one. She created a body double with her chains, which Akutsu destroyed, allowing her to destroy the final wing. She then hugged him and begged him to come back to his senses right before she passed out, since he was finally back to his senses and carried her. Instead of leaving, he walked up to Sui and told him never to come near Lily again, else he'd have to deal with him. Later on, after Akutsu got home with Lily, he freaked out because she wouldn't wake up, and he needed to take off her dirty clothes. He tried calling on Lilia, but she didn't respond to him, so he left alone with his mini demon and angel. While they were advising him to go ahead and take off her clothes, he noticed Lilia was already doing that, so he left. When she was done, she told him she needed to speak with him and took him to the roof. There she told him that Lily had chained her inside her mind and refused to let her out. Akutsu then asked her to explain what happened during the fight, because he barely remembered most of it. She told him he looked very happy hurting Sui, however, she knew it wasn't the real him at that moment. Lilia then told him that all her life, Lily had been treated badly because she wasn't very strong, so she always did whatever she could to improve herself. However, she never once stood up for herself when her siblings hurt her, and now that Akutsu fought Sui for her sake, she had lost the only place she called home. As she spoke, she tackled him to the ground and Akutsu was surprised to see that she was crying. However, she thanked him for setting Lily free and defending her when all she could do was watch helplessly. Akutsu said nothing, so she asked him to rub her head as a way of comforting her since she was crying. The moment he did so, there was a flash from a camera, and when he asked Lilia why she'd set up a camera, she said she was gathering materials. He insisted she tell him what the materials were for, so she told him that she'd show Lily the picture if he ever stopped helping her. Akutsu pointed out that if she showed the picture to Lily, she would also get chewed out. Lilia then got closer to him and said she'd let him grope her melons as a reward for helping Lily. Akutsu refused, saying she was only trying to trick him so she could take another picture for Lily and cause him trouble. Later on, Lily woke up and was surprised to see that she was in a different outfit and in Akutsu's bed. She immediately assumed he'd been the one to change her clothes and tried to attack him, but Lilia intervened. After she listened to Lilia's explanation, she sat down to have coffee with Akutsu and asked about her brother. Akutsu told her he'd given Sui a stern warning never to bother her again and said he left. When she asked about his winged demon form, he told her he had no idea how he was able to make such a transformation. This made her start thinking of a way to get out of trouble with her superiors. She thought that if she told them she was working with Akutsu to learn more about his power, they would pardon her. Her thoughts were soon cut short by Akutsu, who thanked her for bringing him back to his senses during the fight. He then told her to head home, but she told him she was going to spend the night because she didn't want to take chances. Akutsu tried to refuse, but she didn't listen and announced that she would take the bed before she called Lilia and sent her to buy some items she needed. After Lilia returned with the things, she bid them a good night and left, so Lily went to take a shower and Akutsu called Liz, but she didn't pick up. When Lily finished taking her shower, she and Akutsu got ready for bed separately, and after he fell asleep, she approached him. She thanked him for saving her life and admitted she'd been scared to lose him, so as a reward, she kissed him even though he was fast asleep. The next day, on their way to school, they ran into their friends and they all decided to head to school together. Meanwhile, Sui called their elder sister and told her that Lily was still the same weak girl they sent to Earth and assured her that everything was fine. If you've watched up to this point and you liked the video, let us know by commenting Akuma. Also, check this video if you like anime recaps like this.